All right, and welcome back to the forecast card. Unfortunately, it was bound to happen eventually, but our very first 0-5 day has officially happened. Um, some pretty frustrating games. We'll go through them. I actually thought these were all really good sides. I thought we had a good chance of doing well today, but uh, the world begged to differ. Now, this first game, Bethune Cookman, just completely pathetic game from them. Like in a revenge spot at home, this Jackson State team, I'm not kidding when I say this. They were shooting 70% at half. But they were shooting completely lights out. They had Shannon Grant who shot 9 of 11. Dorian McMillan shot 8 for 13. They just could not miss. They got 27 free throws. They shot them pretty decently. Um, they just had an incredible game. Bethune Cookman on the other side, they didn't even shoot bad. They shot 50% from the field. Shot decent from their free throw line, only getting 13 free throws. But yeah, they got out rebounded. They had more turnovers. This was just a completely pathetic game from them, which allowed Jackson State to kind of run away with this game. And I think for me, the worst part of this game was the fact that Bethune, after being down a ton, came all the way back to within 3 points. Right when they got to within three, they gave up a 10-0 run and then lost the game by like 13. So just a rough game all around. I definitely not betting that team ever again. They looked terrible defensively. NC Central looked great for about 10 minutes. They were completely dominating that game. I think they were up like 15 points early on. Looked like they were the better team, especially at home where they've been dominant. And then they just completely collapsed. Like, I still have no idea what happened in that game, especially against a Morgan State team that prior to this game was 0-11 on the road. I don't know how they let them just completely crush them in the second half of that game. Like, yeah, I think when they were up 22-9 at one point early on, and then obviously they imploded by half, being down. What was it? Down 3 at half. And then they were doing okay, and then Morgan State just ran away with that game. Don't really know what was happening. I wasn't watching the game. But Morgan State shot 57% from the field. They shot 95% from the line. Rebounds were basically the same. Turnovers were much more heavy on NC Central. This is just a pathetic game. They shot 42%. They shot 13 of 23 from the free throw line. So they shot, they shoot 5 more free throws, but they scored 4 fewer. Just, I don't know what to say. Just a terrible performance from them. I don't really know what happened, getting up 49 points in the second half, but Morgan State could not miss for whatever reason. Delaware State, this was a classic backdoor. Obviously, it wasn't really that close for most of the game, but they were down 9, covering with 9 seconds left, and the other team decides to shoot a 3 with 1 second left, even though they're up 9. Just pathetic sportsmanship that ended up costing us the cover. Yeah, it is what it is, but that was the epitome of a backdoor. Kansas State, that game was back and forth. It really could have went either way. When the game was tied with like 3 minutes left, I felt pretty good having the points in the back pocket. But the final minutes, they just completely imploded. And I'm going to be honest, I don't usually blame refs for games. But this was probably one of the worst home whistles I've ever experienced. I was actually watching this entire game. I genuinely believe that Kansas State deserved to win this game. Utah got 30 free throws this game. They shot terribly from 3, 15% from 3. Obviously, they completely dominated the boards, but we kind of expected that to happen. But the fact that the free throws, it's not like one team was shooting a lot more in the paint versus the other. Like Kansas State was shot almost just as many paint shots as Utah did. But they get 30 fucking free throws, and they shoot them well, 7%. And in the final, most game-deciding play where Kansas State had a chance to tie the game, they get called on the most bullshit traveling call I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Giving the ball back to Utah, obviously you can't say that's a foul, and then it just becomes a foul, and then shooting three back and forth. Um, yeah, that was. I don't like to blame refs for when my picks lose, but that game was bullshit. Utah had no business winning that game, shooting only 38% from the field. Kansas State shoots 11 for 25 from three. They played a pretty clean game in general. Had fewer turnovers than Utah, and they still lose by 5 because Utah just got a bunch of free points at the line. Yeah, I really don't agree with most of the calls that game, but it is what it is, I guess. And the Baylor game, they just completely imploded to start the second half, and then the rest of the game was them just trying to come back. Arizona played pretty decent, but they didn't shoot threes as well at all. Baylor shot 22% from three. They had how many turnovers? 12 turnovers. Arizona actually had more turnovers. Yeah, this was just a bad game. I don't really know what to say. Edgecombe sucked dick. He took a lot of free throws. Wasn't terrible, but Omier, again, is a fraud. He should have taken a lot more shots. I don't know why Love and Roach are taking more shots than Omier, in my opinion. I think he's the more efficient player. But these dog shit people just kept shooting and missing. Anyway, 0-5. It is what it is. I'm not gonna sit on it for too long, but I genuinely believe 1-4 at least. If you take away the back door, and then 2 of these games came down to the wire, and 2 of them were just complete implosions in terrible teams. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. All right, game number 1. We have Villanova heading on the road to play UConn. Now, this is one of those rare games where I'm going to fade the model again. I do have this only as a 5-point win for UConn, but typically when I'm this far off modeling, it's typically because the books are reading into it a lot more than I am. Connecticut, they lost 2 of their last 3 to St. John's, and they beat Creighton, and then they lost arguably one of their most pathetic losses all year, losing to Seton Hall, who I think is just absolutely terrible. It's very rare that you see this UConn team lose to teams outside of the top 100. Now, obviously Villanova has a decent matchup in this game. They shoot a lot of threes, and the UConn historically is not a great team at defending the three. But this Villanova team, I think they're playing a little bit too well lately. They've had some really solid wins, including over St. John's, Xavier, Providence, and they beat UConn early in January. Now, on the other side, this is a UConn team that is locking in for the tournament. This is the same UConn team that has beaten some really good teams. They beat Gonzaga, they've beaten Texas, they've beaten Creighton, they've beaten Marquette. Like, they're not a bad team. They're not nearly as good as they were last year, obviously, but I think the line is telling us that UConn is going to obliterate them. This is a get-right plus revenge spot for UConn at home, where it is extremely hard to play as an away team. And Nova has been worse on the road than they have been. They're going to be in a travel spot here. They probably went home on their last game. And in their last 4 games where they've had to travel, a little over 100 miles, they've lost all 4. Providence, St. John's, Virginia, Maryland, they've lost all those games. And UConn, they've won pretty much all of their games at home. So this just feels like an awesome spot to back this UConn team after a pretty pathetic loss, especially as we're getting into the tournament. Now, Hurley is you don't become a good coach with just a good team. I think this is a spot where he's going to have nailed this into this team, how pathetic of a loss this was. And yeah, I think UConn wins this game by like 15 points. All right, back to the model. We got Texas A&M heading on the road to play Mississippi State. Now, I don't particularly love to fade teams at home. I've been trying to do it less. But I still don't fully believe in this Mississippi State team, especially at home where they've been playing, for some reason, a lot worse. This is a Texas A&M team that is just insane defensively. And they play an incredible effort every single time. If you look at their most recent games, they kept Arkansas to 61, Georgia to 53, Missouri to 64, South Carolina by 72, which is an impressive beating South Carolina when they're at home. Oklahoma by 7. They kept Texas to 70, Mississippi to 62, LSU to 57. They obviously couldn't stop Alabama or Kentucky, but those are two of the best offenses in college basketball. And Mississippi State, they haven't really looked great. They only put out 61 against Missouri, 68 against Florida. Now they're coming off a massive win over Mississippi. I think they're going to be kind of due for a letdown spot here, a bit of a hangover after beating their in-state rival. Again, I really up until that last win, I don't think they've been that good. Georgia has looked terrible, and they barely beat Georgia. They beat a South Carolina team who pretty much has no business being as good as they are, if I'm being honest. They got crushed by Tennessee. They beat Mississippi twice. Again, they just kind of own that rivalry this year. Crushed by Auburn, crushed by Kentucky, and then they played a bunch of bums pre-conference. But this Texas A&M team, they've been beating good teams. They beat Mississippi as well, LSU, Texas. They lost by 1. Oklahoma, South Carolina, Missouri, Georgia, Arkansas. They beat Texas again. They beat Purdue. They beat Texas Tech. They beat Rutgers. They beat Creighton. This is a very legitimate team, and they hold offenses to very few points. And this is a Mississippi State team that I think has struggled against good defenses already this year. I think this is a fantastic spot to back this Texas A&M spread. Getting 3.5 points seems like a little bit too much. Yes, it is technically a sort of revenge spot, only because Texas A&M won the matchup last year. But they were an underdog there, and they still won. I think we're getting a really good line number here with Texas A&M. The last times they've had to travel this far, like over 400 miles, they've won all 4 of those games. Meanwhile, Mississippi State has lost 3 of their last 4 at home. If you look more in particular in the actual shooting matchup, this game I have Texas A&M modeled to win this game by 2. They have all the momentum. They're playing incredibly well. On paper, I don't really see where this Mississippi State team is gonna score. They shoot a lot of threes. They don't shoot them well. They're outside the top 200 in 3-point percentage. They shoot and this is a ranked top 30 3-point defense. They shoot a lot of near basket shots. This is a top 10 near basket defense. They really rely on second chance opportunities. Texas A&M is the 4th best at defending their own boards, so they're not really going to be able to miss a ton of shots and find it a lot of success getting the boards off of those missed shots against this Texas A&M team. They're so strong. I think they have a good chance to win this game outright. They're just playing really good basketball, and I think they are going to find some success. They're going to get some free throws this game. Again, Texas A&M offensively not great. They're a team that shoots kind of everything, but I think they're going to find more success here against a Mississippi State team that isn't necessarily that great on the boards. They played a much harder schedule. They have a better record quality. They have all the momentum. They're just more consistent. And Mississippi State just doesn't have that massive home advantage like a lot of these teams do in the SEC. So give me Texas A&M to keep this game really close. And I think they have a decent chance to win this game outright. All right, heading on to game number 3, we have Central Michigan heading on the road to play Ohio. Now, I don't really think this is a classic event. Like, Central Michigan did lose at home to Ohio by 2. And when I see that, typically I'm like, okay, there might be a revenge spot. Central Michigan's going to come on really hot. But if you lose to Ohio when they're playing on the road, I just don't think you can handle them at home where they play significantly better basketball. Central Michigan, they haven't been a bad team lately. Their schedule's gotten a little bit tougher, and they've kind of held their own. They only lost by 8 to Kent State, only 3 to Akron. They beat Texas State. They lost to Miami, Ohio. They crushed Bowling Green. Other than that, they're really not that impressive of a team. I haven't fully bought into them. Ohio, they're coming off a rough loss to Kent State, where they lost by 1 point. I think they're going to be frustrated and want to get back in the win column. I think they're in a little bit of a slump. They've lost six of the last 9 after a 6-win streak. And now they're off a loss heading back home. Meanwhile, Central Michigan is heading on the road this game on a decent 300-mile travel spot where they've lost 3 of their last 4, including a terrible loss to Buffalo, who is a significantly worse team than Ohio. And at home, Ohio is, again, one of the better home teams in college basketball. At home, they're a top 100 team, when overall they're like borderline top 200 team. They have the 20th best home advantage in college basketball. Central Michigan, on the other hand, they play a lot worse on the road. And despite the fact that they have been playing better lately, in conference rating, Ohio is just a significantly better team. And I think the fact that we're getting them at home is just going to speak marvels. Now, Ohio, if you look at the individual matchups here, they're just the way better team. And, where do they like to typically score? They're a team that shoots a lot of threes and near basket shots. Central Michigan doesn't really defend anything well. The shot that they defend well, the best is mid-range, and that's not even that great. So I think Ohio is going to find a lot of success offensively. Central Michigan, the one thing they do well is they don't really turn the ball over that much. But I don't think it's going to be really that effective here. On the other side, Central Michigan, they might find a little bit of success in the near basket, but it's actually, even though they shoot over 40% of their shots in the paint, it's actually one of the spots that Ohio defends the best. And they kind of rely on second chance opportunities. The Central Michigan team, they're ranked 31st in potential points and ranked 30th in converting them. But this is an Ohio team that's ranked 16 in college basketball in limiting second chance opportunities. So I think this is going to be a tough matchup for the Central Michigan team. Head on the road, playing a team that they just lost to, and then they're going to overthink every decision they make. Give me a plus. I think if it comes down, push comes to shove, Ohio is a top 20 free throw percentage team. So I think Ohio can easily win this game by 5, if not by 10. Heading on to game number 4, we have Butler heading on the road to play Xavier. Now, Butler, I'm happy for them now that they're finally starting to play better. But I think Xavier has just been the better team for longer. Like, I'm sure Butler's got all this momentum, but the Xavier's team is still really good, and we're getting them at home. This line just stinks a little bit to me. I think they should be bigger favorites. On paper, Xavier's a team that's going to find a lot of success. They shoot a lot of shots in the paint. Something where Butler has struggled. Butler's more of a team that defends the threes better. They're top 40 in defending the 3. Xavier's still a top 10 team at shooting threes. I still think they're going to find a lot of success on their home floor, where teams typically shoot threes better. They're going to find a ton of success on the offensive boards. They're going to get a lot of points off turnovers. I think this is a really good matchup for Xavier, who has just been the better team all year. Butler, they also shoot a lot of threes. They might find a little bit of success, but again, threes typically fall a lot less often when you're playing on the road. And one of the shots that they take a lot of mid-range. That's something that Xavier defends well. And Xavier does not turn the ball over, so I don't think Butler's going to get any points off steals. They don't really do that anyway. So Xavier's just going to get a ton of free chances while Butler doesn't really play any aggressive defense. I do think Butler might find some success on the boards as well, but I do think Xavier at home plays a lot stronger of a format. On paper, Xavier at home plays about the same on the road. They're a top 40 team, and Butler has been playing better on the road. They are a borderline top 50 team when playing on the road. But yeah, when I look at the matchups here, I don't see how Butler's going to find too much success here. I want to believe it because I actually like this Butler team, but they're going to be in a travel spot here. Xavier's won their last 4 games at home pretty decisively, and they beat really good teams at home. They beat Villanova by 6, they beat Connecticut by 4, they beat Georgetown by 5. All of those teams, I think, are better than Butler. Like, Butler is more in the DePaul category, and Xavier beat DePaul by 17 points. So, yeah, I think we're getting a good number here. I hate the 5.5 number historically. 6.5 typically gives me a little bit more confidence. We're getting Xavier off of a really solid win. Butler has won 3 in a row. I think they're going to be, really happy with their play as of lately. but this is still a team that lost 8 in a row. Um, I don't think I think this is going to be a big step up in competition, and now they're going to be in a true road spot where Xavier has got an extra day's rest. I think Xavier is just going to be the better side here. So give me Xavier at home. All right, now I'm just going to fade Boston College. I understand that they're starting to play a little bit better, but on paper, this seems like a great matchup. I actually have Virginia Tech winning this game by 4. It seems a little sus because I do think VT is a significantly better team than Boston College. Um, they played a harder schedule. They've been the better team, and they are one of the best teams when playing on the road. Like, they are an elite road team. Compared to Boston, who has only won 1 game at home, they for some reason suck playing in front of their home crowd. This is a VT team that shoots a lot of threes. They're going to find a lot of success against a borderline ranked 300 three-point defense from Boston College. They're going to find a lot of chance on the offensive boards. They're going to find a lot of chance free points off free throws against a Boston College team that fouls a ton. I think Boston College offensively might find a little bit of success, but they're not really going to get many free throws. They're not going to get any points off steals. And, this is still a top 100 three-point defense from BT, who I think is going to limit them a little bit here, playing in a bit more of a comfortable zone for them. Now, Virginia Tech, they've been a bit of I'd say a weird team this year. They've kind of been all over the place. You don't really know what version of them you're going to get. But, yeah, I just think if you look at the specific power ratings, Boston College falls outside the top 200 when playing at home. Virginia Tech enters the top 75 when playing on the road. If you look at their last 5 ratings, Virginia Tech's been a top 75 team, Boston College a top 200 team. And yeah, I just think this is going to be a tough showing here. If you look at the most recent games, we're getting Virginia Tech off a really tough loss where they lost to Virginia by 3 points at home. I think they're going to be really fired up losing in that in-state rival game. Meanwhile, Boston College coming off another 4-loss streak. They're not technically in a road spot, obviously, but they are also traveling because they're coming off a road game. And again, yes, this is a pretty significant travel spot, over 500 miles. But at home, Boston College has lost 3 of the last 4. BT has won 2 of the last 4. Their 2 losses on the road have been against really good teams like Michigan. And I'm not saying South Carolina is like an elite team, but they are at home. Yeah, I just don't see a world here where Boston College can compete unless their threes are falling. But I think BT is just straight up the better team, and we're getting a really good number. So give me Virginia Tech. I'm just going to take them on the money line, but I would also take them at -1.5. I might end up doing that. I'm not sure yet. All right, game number 6. I'm gonna end up. I think so Purdue's been on my ban list all year, but I think I'm gonna bet them this game. Now on paper, Michigan State's gonna find some success in the paint. It's not necessarily a really strong Purdue team, but I would argue this is a must-win game for Purdue. They have looked really up and down this year. They just dropped 6 ranks in 6 ranking spots in the top 25, which is pretty mentally hard for any coach, especially as you're approaching the tournament. They're coming off 2 losses in a row, albeit some pretty close losses too. Lost to Michigan by 2, and then they lost to Wisconsin by 10 at home. Michigan State is coming off a really big win against Illinois, and this is more of a letdown spot for Michigan State, and they haven't really been playing that good at home. They've become a top 22 team when playing at home versus a top 10 team everywhere else, and Purdue does regress a bit on the road, but they're still a top 20 team. Like, we're getting them in a much more desperate spot than this Michigan State team is. I think they're going to find success shooting in general. I do think Michigan State, in a vacuum, is being a better team this year. But getting 4 points with this Purdue team after they've lost 3 of the last 4 on the road, Yeah, I think Purdue could win this game outright. I'm gonna take them at +4 though. Um, I think they keep this game really close. All right, game number 6 or 7. Not fully sure if I'm gonna bet this yet. Maybe I'll look for a better line, but I'm gonna take Colorado. Like they have been, obviously dog shit on the road, but I think they have a decent matchup here against the Iowa State team. They've actually played a harder schedule than Iowa State. Um, Obviously, schedule strength doesn't mean everything, but Iowa State team, they rely a lot on getting points off second chance opportunities. It's a Colorado team that is pretty good at defending their own boards. They're top 80. They do turn the ball over a lot, which is pretty much the only thing keeping me from betting this game. Um, because Iowa State at home can make you have 15 to 20 turnovers, which is not ideal. But on paper, Iowa State, they like to shoot a lot of threes and near basket shots, two things that Colorado defends pretty well. And on the other side, Colorado, they're a team that shoots near basket. I think they're going to find a little bit of success there. One spot Iowa State defends poorly. And they're also going to get some decent chance off second chance opportunities. So Iowa State is a team that can blow off which can just beat you by 40. Probably not going to bet this. I think the line might move a little bit towards Iowa State. But if it gets to like 18.5, 19.5, I might take a chance here at Colorado. And lastly, LSU. I've been kind of jumping back and forth between this game because, Colorado, like, Michigan State, South Carolina, they've not really been scary on the road. But I think, God, I don't know. I think I'm going to bet this. I think LSU has enough of a home advantage here. And South Carolina, they're a team that is insane at boards. They're the second best team on grabbing defensive rebounds and, borderline top 100 team at getting second chance rebounds offensively. I just don't know. I think LSU is going to shoot a little bit better. We'll see, though. I already bet the first 5, and I probably will bet Purdue and LSU in the morning. I'm going to see. I think the lines are going to move against me, so I think I get Purdue. Actually, I think I'm going to bet Purdue +4 tonight because I think it's actually going to move. And then LSU, I'm going to try to get closer to money line because there's all the short money on South Carolina. I think we can get them at a better price. So those are the 6 games that I'm going to be betting. Maybe 8. We'll see. But yeah, hopefully after everything went to shit today, I really can't believe it. Not only were the games terrible, but one was just a natural backdoor, and then 2 of them could have went either way, and then they just went. The road team and the away team both went the opposite ways. No words. The sport is so frustrating to bet, especially YouTube-wise, because it hurts more knowing that like other people are seeing it. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, and hopefully tomorrow is a little bit nicer to us.